What forges a legend? Is it born in the clash of steel, or in the glitter of a king's gold? Or does it begin much earlier, as a quiet fire in a young boy's soul? Picture this, the 11th century. A young boy stands by the dark, still water of a fjord in Norway. He is playing with his brothers when their half-brother, the King of Norway, Saint Olaf, approaches. Olaf asks each of them what they desire most. One dreams of barns overflowing with grain, another of vast herds of cattle. Then Olaf turns to the youngest boy, whose name is Harald. "And what do you want?" he asks. The boy doesn't speak of land or livestock. His eyes are fixed on a different horizon. "Herdsman," he replies. The boy's only wish is for warriors, a personal retinue sworn only to him. Amused, the king asks him how large this retinue of herdsmen would be. The boy's answer is a chilling prophecy. He says he would want enough men to eat all of his brother's grain and all of their cattle in a single sitting. The boy was Harald Sigurdsson, the man history would come to know as the last Viking, and we know today as Harald Hardrada, the hard ruler. That was the first cry of a warrior's soul, a soul engulfed in a fire that was destined to burn its way across the known world. And that fire was almost extinguished before it could truly ignite. At just 15, Harald stands beside King Olaf at the disastrous Battle of Stiklestad. A coalition of Norwegian nobles and peasants has risen against their king, opposed to his Christianity, opposed to his tyranny. They'd rather bend the knee to a foreign ruler, King Knut the Great of Denmark, than serve Olaf. The battle was fierce and bloody, and Olaf was outnumbered. After a valiant effort to put down the rebellion, the day was lost, and Olaf was killed. Harald, grievously wounded, is left for dead among the corpses. But destiny had other plans. A loyal warrior named Ronvald Bruseson, the son of a jarl, an oath sworn to Olaf, finds Harald in the twilight of the battle. Ronvald spirits him away to heal. This single act of loyalty creates a life debt, an unspoken bond that will echo across decades and shape the fate of a kingdom. A landless prince with a bounty on his head, Harald flees east into the vast, snowy expanse of the Kievan Rus. He finds refuge in the court of the great prince, Yaroslav the Wise. This isn't just a hiding place, it's a training ground. For years, he learns the arts of war and statecraft, his raw ambition now being tempered by strategy. The boy with a fierce dream is becoming a leader, but the cold courts of Kiev couldn't contain his spirit. He looks south, to the glittering heart of the world, the city the Norsemen called Miklagard, Constantinople. To serve in the Varangian Guard was the ultimate calling for a Norseman seeking glory. They were the elite bodyguards of the Byzantine emperor, famed for their loyalty and savagery in battle. Harald doesn't just join them, he rises to command them. For a decade, he is the emperor's sword. He campaigns from Sicily to Bulgaria, amassing a staggering fortune in gold and jewels, all of which he sends north for safekeeping with his friend, Yaroslav. He becomes so powerful, so wealthy, that he becomes a threat to the very emperors he serves. After a dramatic falling out and a daring escape, Harald leaves the greatest city on earth with more power than any Viking before him. He is a king in all but name, and with his Varangian army at his back and a fortune waiting for him in Kiev, the path back to the throne of Norway seems clear. He arrives back in the court of Yaroslav the Wise, a living legend, and then he waits for 5 years. This is a great puzzle of Harald's life. Why would a man of such ferocious ambition, with all the means to seize his destiny, simply stop? The answer, I believe, lies in that one twilight moment on the battlefield at Stiklestad. It lies in the debt of honor Harald owed to one man, Ronvald Bruseson, the man who had saved his life and had been sworn to his brother Olaf. Now, Ronvald was utterly and fiercely loyal to the current king, Magnus, Harald's own nephew and Olaf's son. Harald knew if he sailed for Norway, Ronvald would be placed in an impossible position, forcing him to raise his sword against the very boy whose life he had saved. And so, Harald, the hard ruler, chose honor over ambition, and he waited. It was a silent, profound act that reveals the true character of the man behind the legend. Only after Ronvald's death in a separate conflict does Harald finally return to the cold shores of home. He becomes the sole king of Norway, and for 20 years, he rules with an iron will. He is every bit the hard ruler. He crushes his domestic enemies, establishes a national currency, and fosters trade that brings prosperity. He enforces his brother Olaf's vision, building churches and cementing Norway's place as a modern Christian kingdom. But beneath this veneer of Christian piety, did the old fire still burn? I believe that Harald was torn between adopting Christianity and following the old pagan ways. He seemed to be a Christian king of the time, building churches and forcing all under his domain into the Christian faith. But was it because he believed in the new faith, or was it because of what Christianity might offer him? Control, power. His time in Miklagard shows him as more of a Viking warrior in search of glory than as a Christian king. This is a central conflict in his life, a question best answered by the fates of his two closest friends. One, Ulf, stays by his side, adapting to the new Christian order. But the other, a fierce Icelandic warrior named Halldor Snorrason, a man the sagas describe as a berserker in everything but name, cannot. After a time, Halldor quietly leaves the royal court and returns to the stark, wild landscapes of Iceland. I have to wonder, did Halldor, perhaps a secret keeper of the old ways himself, look at his friend the king and see a betrayal? Did he see the churches and the Latin chants as a cage being built around a wild pagan soul? Halldor's quiet departure feels like a mourning for a friend he believed was lost, not to death, but to a different god. Nearly 20 years pass as Harald shapes the future of Norway. He is no longer the warrior leading a loyal retinue of herdsmen, but a king, shaping the future of a nation, the wildfire of his soul seemingly extinguished. Then in 1066, at 51, Harald makes his final audacious gamble for the throne of England. He invades the island and claims the English crown for himself, crushing an army at the Battle of Fulford. With the northern English forces defeated, Harald believes he has bought himself some breathing room. However, the opposite is true. Unknown to the Norwegian forces, Harald Godwinson has force-marched an army from the south across the whole of England, and only days after his victory at Fulford, Harald is caught by surprise at Stamford Bridge. It is here, in these final desperate moments, that the veneer of civilization finally cracks. It is here we get the answer to where Harald Hardrada's soul truly belongs. Is he a Christian king fated for heaven, or a pagan warrior bound for Valhalla? The sagas tell us that the king of Norway went into a divine rage. He cast off his armor, took up his greatsword, and plunged into the thickest of the fighting, like a storm. He became a whirlwind of destruction, a force of pure, primal fury that had been sleeping for 20 years. He entered the Berserker gang, an extreme battle frenzy or trance-like state experienced by Norse warriors touched by Odin. In that final charge, he wasn't a politician. He wasn't a Christian king building churches. He was the boy by the fjord who dreamed of warriors. He was the pagan spirit his friend Halldor remembered. And he gave his final answer to the world, not in a prayer, but in the glorious blood-soaked state of battle that marked the true end of the Viking Age. I imagine Halldor, years later, an old man on those black sand shores, when the news finally reaches him across the cold sea. And I don't see him weeping for a fallen Christian king. I see a flicker of sorrowful pride in his eyes. He would know in his heart that his friend had not gone to the heaven of the priests. The man who died in a berserker fury had been carried by the Valkyries from that bloody English field. His friend had earned his place in Valhalla. He had, at last, gone home. Harald's story is a powerful reminder that history is never simple. It's a web of loyalty, ambition, and the hidden truths of the human soul. To continue exploring these historical chronicles, join our ongoing investigation at jdlemky.com. The link is in the description below.